Okay, Sarah here. So for this particular recording, it is February 2025. And so for this particular tax season, actually, one of my goals is to just put out some more resources out there for people who are interested in actually learning more about some very, very simple tools to file personal income taxes. So there's lots of great resources out there, and I do believe that for many individuals it's definitely doable for them to file on their own. Maybe it just looks a little scary on how to even start that, but it really isn't. So the purpose of this recording isn't to go over the technical or the theory that is somewhere else. You can access those resources elsewhere, but this one purely is, okay, you want to file, how to file, and what's an example of that. Okay, so for this particular one, we're going to keep it super simple. This is a young individual, let's say 18 to 19 years old, Canadian. We'll say they're out from BC, they're a student, and they're working part-time, they're earning some investment income. So really, really simple. Okay, and then maybe I'll do more of these, but this is the first one I'm doing. So just to repeat again, Canadian resident, based out of BC, young individual, earning some employment income, some investment income, is a student, okay, so is going to get some tuition tax credits, and let's see, maybe they got a bursary or grant or scholarship as well. Okay, so that is the scenario. So CRA does actually a pretty nice job at trying to provide some basic background. They even have some extra workshops, I believe they said recently that they launched. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere there. And so that would be really great resource, or you could always YouTube. But anyways, I recommend Simple. Actually, they're called Wealthsimple now, aren't they? So I used to use them actually when I wasn't at the firm and had to use other software to file taxes. I found Simple Tax at that time, which has now been bought out by Wealthsimple, of course, and they're sort of a pay-as-you-go. I see they now have some packaging plans, which is interesting, but I think for most individuals, you are completely fine with the basic, which is free, or you pay what you want. It used to be by donation, I think. I don't know what has changed since, but there looks to be some other plans as well. Okay, but anyways, you make an account, and of course, Wealthsimple is a beast now with all their other offerings as well, but they did buy out Simple Tax, and so they have their tax filing platform as well. So what I have here is I actually just started to populate because I have a high school visit coming up where I'm doing this, and I need to get this ready, but I figured, why don't I just show how I'm going to do it anyways for that individual, and maybe that could be helpful if you're interested in using this platform. So Wealthsimple has some very, very friendly, overview videos, articles. I think they do a nice job with that. But anyways, you create your profile. Okay, I've already done that, and you will say what tax year you want to file for. I imagine it'd be for the 2024 tax year, so that's what we're going to use here. And it will bring you to this first landing page, which is just to fill out your information. So I just went ahead and just used a dummy example for my simulation coming up, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to try to point out as well, like, why some of these fields are important. So BC obviously is important because that's actually where they reside, and therefore from a provincial tax perspective, that's what it's going to use to calculate. Age also important, right? There might be some tax implications or opportunities based on age. So right away, I mean, there's some important fields right there. Next, actually, I would go here. This is amazing. I remember when I was at the firm and they finally launched this many, many years ago, because before that, it was truly manual data entry. And we're all human. We all make mistakes. But when they introduced the AFR, it was amazing. And it actually does a really nice job. We were quite skeptical at first when it first was launched, I remember. But we're now in 2025. It is amazing. If you're not using AFR, why not? The only thing I would say to be careful here is when you import. What this is effectively is CRA has a lot of information already about you, right? And that's the scary reality. And so with a platform like Wealthsimple or Turbotax or what Ufile, whatever it might be, you select the AFR. It is basically importing whatever CRA has about you at that date. And so the only thing to worry about at that point is if you do this too early. A lot of slips aren't actually released until well into March or even early April. So for those early filers, unless you already have that information elsewhere, if not, if you're reliant on slips, maybe wait a little bit before doing this step, okay? But once that timing is okay, and look, they even have a video, that's so nice. Then you go ahead and import, right? And it downloads a lot of that information, and it does a pretty nice job. But anyways, I'm not going to be able to show that here because I have a dummy SIN, unfortunately. I've asked Wealthsimple many times for a better dummy SIN, and they've said no. Anyways, maximizing, okay. Now I'm over here with the personal information. So again, just making sure you enter your information accordingly. Okay, so the address. So I'm going to use this individual today. Okay, so let me do that actually. Just want to copy that same information. So if this is for you, then obviously you know your own address. But let's say if you're filling this out for someone else, for a client, then always double checking you have the correct mailing address, and it needs to be what CRA has on file, because if not, then there would obviously be some issues. They may not accept it. Okay, so first off, making sure you've updated with CRA. Don't let them know through this way, right? You either go to your CRA My account and you do it that way. Do you have a non-Canadian? So we'll say no. This is a very simple person. Are you a Canadian resident? So I could spend 3-4 hours talking about this topic, but I won't. We're going to say yes. Okay. So citizen is different to resident. Just we'll say that piece. About your province. So yeah, we already said BC. Did you change? Okay, we're going to say no. This person is very, very, very simple. But these are questions, and the reason why these questions are there for an average human that's using a platform like Ufile, Turbotax, Wealthsimple, these are important that you're reading them and you're answering, because it might trigger something else down the road. Okay, so yes, same. Okay, status. So again, these are all important, right? This might have a tax implication, so just making sure you fill this out accordingly as at December 31st, 2024. Right? Did it change at any point in the year? Do you have any dependents? That's an important one. Okay, and look, they even have definitions. That is great. Wealthsimple is doing such a nice job to help define what is dependent. And so yes or no, that will have a lot of tax implications there. Are you filing an income tax return with them? So we'll say no for this individual. Are you a Canadian citizen? Notice that different field, right? There was Canadian resident, Canadian citizen. So this is actually a different term. And so just making sure you complete that accordingly. They always have this question, especially with the upcoming election, you might want to say yes to this. Okay, yes or no. So these are things, again, we're doing a sample here today, but make sure you're answering this and you're not just flying through this. This is important from an informational, that T1135 that is required as of, I want to say 2016 maybe, or actually earlier, I should say. Anyways, it's an informational return. We'll say no, right? There's no foreign property in excess of that cost base. Did you dispose of any principal residence? So these are all really important questions to fill out correctly, because again, it's going to bring up another field down below. This is a new one for 2024. This one is new. Lots of changes there on that side of things. Okay, did you open an FHS account? Lots of important terms. So I honestly could spend probably a couple hours on each point here, but I'm going to hold back right now. So no. Okay, up to you for this one, right? Okay, so just on this one, actually, very, very recently, they announced that they're transitioning everyone actually to online mail. So they are moving away from the snail mail. And so this is actually a really big issue that as practitioners we're facing, because a lot of people are still reliant on paper mail. But CRA is not going to send this out in the short time coming. So making sure you do have a CRA My account, you remember that password. If not, ask for it and go through the snail mail route to get that access code again. But you need to make sure, because they have clearly announced that they are moving away from the paper mail, and the only way to access the updates, the mail, the audits, the reviews is through the online mail route. All right, so that fun stuff is done. But again, taking your time to do that because they will prompt you for other things. And this platform is really great, but if you didn't prompt it, it can't help you. So that now we're over here managing the tax forms. And so this is where if you're nice and organized, you go through your folder or your drawer or wherever it is you've been keeping all your tax forms and you get yourself nice and organized. Now, if you did AFR, a lot of this would actually already be in the system and you're just double checking, right? Did they get it right? Did they accidentally import the wrong number? So you're checking. But if you didn't do AFR, then, going back to the good old days, you need to data enter. So let's go ahead and look. This individual has 1, 2, 3, 4 slips that they received, and they will triple check to make sure it is only 3 slips. Okay, can I make this smaller? So I'll pause here for a moment because again, if this is your first time, and for person SRS, we're saying this is a very young individual, it might be really daunting if it's your first time receiving a slip like this. It looks scary. It really isn't scary for most people out there. So I'm actually going to just take a quick pause to go through these slips. So you'll receive this. You'll receive a T4 if you earned employment income. If you didn't get this from your employer, go chase them, and maybe it's on a portal somewhere. Double check. Make sure it's accurate. People make mistakes, actually. It's very common to make mistakes. And so because it's your tax implication, it is in your best interest to double check. Now, in order to double check, of course, you need to understand what it's even saying. So T4 is speaking to the employment income. Your employer's name should be up top. Your SIN number better be correct. Just double check that and make sure your details are correct as well, right? You can do that. Your province is correct here. They didn't make a mistake anywhere. And here we go with the boxes. So the most common ones you'll always see will be box 14, 22, 16, and 18. You could actually corroborate that with your pay slip just to make sure there's no massive errors that are sticking out to you. If you have questions, ask, right? Double check. This is going to be your tax implications. So if you're not quite sure where this number came from or you don't think it's right, then have that conversation with your employer. It's their duty to answer. Maybe they made a mistake. Now with boxes, you can go to the back page of a lot of these forms and they will tell you what this box is. So it seems scary, but it really isn't. Box 14 is that employment income. Not only your salaries and wages, but it could include other things like taxable allowances, taxable benefits. Again, I could spend 3, 4, 5 hours on that, but I won't. Okay, so that's box 14. This is taxable. Then we move on to box 22, which is speaking to the withholding. So throughout the year, the employer was required to withhold some of your taxes. They have to do that. It's not that they're being mean, it's that they have to do it. And you can actually thank them because they helped you pay your installments early. Okay, so that's another conversation for another day. But that is box 22. What taxes have already been withheld for income tax purposes? Box 16 is speaking to the CPP program. If you're not aware, we're at the finally at that last stage of that phase in at that egregious 5.95%. It's in full effect now. And so, yes, we contribute a lot to CPP, and that is representing your employee portion. EI down below box 18, again, this is your contributions that have been withheld from your paycheck that is being remitted to the government on your behalf. Okay, so these are pretty important, and of course we'll have some tax implications. You might see other things that come up, so things that may come up, maybe RPP contributions, maybe they withheld some union dues on your behalf. Box 40, maybe they're gonna highlight some taxable benefits, or box 42, maybe you earn some commission. So the purpose of a T4 is to try to summarize what you earned or what impacts had on you from an employment income perspective for that particular tax year. And just make sure you're okay with that, right? Do you agree? If not, then again, speak with your employer and just get a better understanding. Your employer is required to file this by the T4 deadline, which typically is due at the end of February, so that you can then prepare your personal taxes come March and April. Okay, so I will pause there actually, because let's go ahead and data enter that. So I'm going to go back to the Wealthsimple, and I see that I have a T4. So I will type in T4, and look at that. Doesn't it look so similar? Okay, so at this point, you're really just data entering, right? You're just transposing that same information exactly per your T4 slip. And you're matching the boxes. So box 14 said 55,000. Box 22, you understand now this is speaking to the taxes withheld. Actually, I'll leave that one for later. Okay, CPP is box 16. Box 18 is another important one. EI. Okay, you could go ahead and enter these ones, but it really has not really a tax impact to this, but you might as well just capture everything. Okay, so look at that. I'll pause there because this number looks obviously very scary based on that 55,000 employment income from the province of BC, and on a federal level, you need to pay the government $7,201. Wow, I don't have that money. Well, it's a good thing your employer's been withholding for you, and you've actually prepaid the government $7,380 throughout the year, every single paycheck. And what we have here actually is over remittance, meaning you're now going to get a refund. Okay, so isn't that fun? I think it's so fun when you can see that change. I think Wealthsimple does such a nice job. Okay, so very important, these numbers are correct, okay, and it will change over there on the left. So A, yes, you are required to prepay your taxes. I can talk about that for a few hours as well. But as an employee, you can thank your employer because they've been helping you do this along the way. Any other boxes, okay, you can tell it here, right? Box 40, box 42, whatever it is you want to add there. And that is our first slip. So well done. I think it saves, right? Saving, good. Don't want to lose my work. So let's move on. So we have another slip here, another one that may be received if you're investing and you're not investing in a tax deferred or tax-free account. You can expect a T5. Another conversation for another day is about those tax advantage accounts, the RSP, TFSA, FHSA. That's another conversation for another day, and I think it's super important. But we'll say for person SRS, they don't have one for some reason. They're going to do some research maybe in the upcoming year, and they've had their investments in taxable accounts. Okay, fine, that's their choice. But great, they're earning some investment income. Now, T5 is serving to summarize that based on the institution. So they clearly have an account with TD. Maybe they have an account with RBC or Wealthsimple even, right? Then those issuers will hopefully issue a T5. Now, I just want to emphasize a couple things here, and I'll try to hold myself back, but not all of them do. That's a bit of the scary part, right? If you know you have an account with Wealthsimple, you know you have an account with RBC, why do you not have the T5 slip? You're not allowed to say, oh, well, they didn't send me anything, so I didn't file. No, the CRA will not accept that. You will get the penalties, you will get the interest charges. So you need to stay a little bit organized and making sure, okay, I have these various accounts. They're not in tax advantage accounts, and so I should be getting a T5 slip. Let me follow up with them. Some of them have a policy where they actually don't issue if it's under a certain amount, but you are still required to capture that. So how are you going to do that, right? So just some things to consider. It's not meant to be scary, but you just need to be a little bit organized when investing, of course. And as with investing, there's so much to consider there, right? Making sure you're being smart about it, making sure you're researching it, and maybe opening up these tax advantaged accounts. But anyways, okay, so the reality is this individual has a T5 slip, so let's just keep it simple for today and capture that information. So here, this was issued from TD. It's Canadian converted, so that's nice. And box 13, I am simply copying, right? Do I see anything else? No, not necessarily. Look at that, the refund did go down, didn't it, right? Because we have some taxable income here from that interest. Again, boxes look scary, but always look at the back page, right? What is it speaking to? So box 13 is speaking to interest, okay? Interest income earned. So maybe they have a high yield savings account or a GIC, whatever that might be. If you're earning dividends, then that will show up, of course, in different boxes, be it eligible dividends or non-eligible dividends. Okay, maybe there's some capital gains, capital gain dividend. Otherwise, if it's a true capital gain, that's on a T5008 slip. There's just many other things that could pop up here. And as an individual, as a basic individual, unless you're going to challenge TD, you think they did an incorrect job, you're probably going to rely on this information. Otherwise, you can always hire an accountant to help you reconcile if you feel like they didn't do a good job, right? And you want someone to reconcile and maybe prepare the records to maybe file something different. But otherwise, CRA has this already. And so if you don't have that, then it's a matter of seconds for them to realize you didn't report something. We're going to either just include it for you as a goodwill gesture and not charge you interest, or we will send you a letter, we're going to charge you penalties, we're going to charge you interest. So these slips are shared with CRA. There might be a slight timing delay, but they just have that. So there's no point on ignoring it, right? It's going to be captured. Okay, so for this individual, we do have some other slips. So it looks like they went to school, as I mentioned. So if that's the case, your institution likely will issue you a T2202. If you're not sure where to find that, of course, you can look at their portals. You can ask them where to find that, but they definitely should issue one. And so if that's the case, again, you're just simply capturing that information. Tuition is eligible for a refundable or non-refundable tax credit. So maybe it's going to prompt you for some decisions to be made, or your accountant will chat with you about that. But here we're going to keep it simple. We're just data entering the information we see. So this year, were you a post-secondary student? I guess so. Name of school, so you can just copy that. Eligible tuition. Okay, so you might need to read this a little bit carefully. Again, you can always use the back page to, I guess this one doesn't have it. That's unfortunate, but here, just reading very quickly, eligible tuition, right? Total 5,000. They also want to know how much of that was part-time, how much of that was full-time, and so just making sure you capture that information correctly. If you did AFR, this should already be there, and you're just double checking. Okay, but if not, if you didn't do AFR, if you don't know how to do AFR, you just data enter. Disability. Okay, we're just going to leave that. This is where it's talking about that refundable tax credit. So again, if you did AFR, it should already be here. Otherwise, you can enter whatever is in your notice of assessment. It should be there, and you enter that. Okay, you can learn more, I guess, by clicking on their links. Okay, so we'll bring you to that. Let's see, what are they going to show us? Wow, so nice. This is great. It even tells you where to go on your notice of assessment. That's fantastic. Okay. Anyway, so we'll ignore that. We'll say no, they didn't have any, they didn't earn any limits from the Canada Training Credit. And so we'll just focus on the non-refundable tax credit. Wow, look at that, right? That gives them a nice refund. Okay, so without that, they owe $47. But as a result of the non-refundable tuition tax credit, because we said no here, they get a nice refund. So that's always nice to see. What else does this individual have? It looks like they also have a T4A. T4A serves as just the slip for everything, but in person SRS's case, it looks like they had, what is box 105? Probably scholarship. Okay, if in doubt, you just go ahead and look for it. Box 105. 105. Why can't I find it? Oh, I'm really struggling. Oh, there you go. Yeah, so scholarships, bursaries, right? And unless certain criteria is met, some of it could be taxable. So you're happy to get that bursary, that grant, that scholarship. Okay, there's no doubt about it, but it could be taxable unless certain exceptions are met. And it looks like they even withheld some taxes upon the issuance of that scholarship. Anyways, your job is to capture that. Okay, so T4A, okay, name, and then they said box 105, so we'll go find that. Oh, sorry, box 105 for how much? 2,000. Okay, and then we have box 2. Oh, this is already there. Thank you. Okay. So here, I mean, yeah, I guess because you were withheld, it's going to further, they're saying you didn't have to basically have that tax taken away. You shouldn't have, so they're going to refund it to you. Okay, so footnote RPP country, no, I don't think that's applicable here. What type of awards? So you might need to double check with the school what you received, okay? And this is where there could be some tax implications. So let's say it was for the full-time, okay? And so it will match that accordingly. If you say instead part-time, then there's actually probably a tax impact to that. So you notice that drop in the refund. So pretty important you get that right. Double check what was this for, and make sure you capture that accordingly. Okay, so those are the 4 slips for this person, for this sample individual, and it's just to walk through and again, hopefully show how friendly these platforms can be. And if you have really, really simple tax situations, you probably could do this on your own. You don't need to hire someone. These kinds of platforms are getting smarter every year, and so you probably could leverage from it and file on your own, okay? Again, unless you feel very overwhelmed by this or you have some more complicated tax situations, you're earning business income, you're a sole proprietor, or you're earning rental income, or you have a really, really complicated tax investment portfolio, then those are definitely some situations where you'll want professional help. But otherwise, we are now here at the review and optimize. So we go ahead and click that. It will try to double check if anything looks wrong, and look at that, lots of diagnostics. Okay, so it's saying, ooh, please double check some things before we file. So you go ahead and fix whatever it is, right? So they didn't like my sin, obviously, good. It's looking out that it's a fake sin. But it's also gonna just double check a lot of other things as well. Okay, so again, you just go through it. Maybe at that point, if you have questions, you reach out to someone for some help, or you do your research. But a lot of these are pretty standard, so they're just saying, hey, can you please double check? They're also going to give you some suggestions. So based on what you completed above, they might think, based on, the inputs, you might be qualified for something here, something there. Can you double check, right? So it's just a nice way for you to double check. Even if you thought you were organized, you might have missed something, or you might not have realized there's some new tax benefits out there to take advantage of. Okay, so that is our situation here. Now, at this stage, once you clear all those errors, you'll probably have a button that says submit, and you can actually then use this platform to submit to CRA. But what I would like to do, and this is where I'll just be technical for just a quick moment, is to show, I want to see where the PDF is. Or are they not going to show me the PDF? Maybe I need to clear the errors first, and then it'll show me the PDF. Okay, fine, let me do that. Okay, so they actually needed a sin, so I put my sin, which I'm not happy about, but I just wanted to show that after you clear all the diagnostics and you have a valid sin, of course, then it will give you the opportunity to download the PDF, which I do want to show because I find a lot of people are scared of it. It looks really scary, but the goal again is to hopefully just reduce some of that fear. So you can see here, and the summary is also here, right, in a nicer, cleaner way. But yeah, let's take a look. So we have page 1, and this is only 5 pages. A personal tax return should be longer than this, but this is the summary page, which for many of you, that's maybe all you care about to read, and you're not going to read the other pages. But at least if you can interpret this page, these 5 pages, that's a great start. So all of this should be correct. If you have an accountant helping you, you want to double check that they captured everything. They didn't make any mistakes. Okay, and just, I always like to have people sign off actually, just to help me double check that everything looks correct. And maybe we missed something, we didn't talk about something, that's a good time to capture that and have a chat about it. Anyways, so now I'm down over here. These are all the qualitative questions that were ahead or at the beginning. Okay, so this one looks a little strange, but anyways, let's see. Yeah, this page looks a little different, but anyways, I think it's more or less capturing the key information. So as you saw, right, line 10100, employment income. There was then some interest income. So here we're trying to capture, okay, and maybe I'll be a little bit technical, that net income for tax purposes. Okay, so the components that go into net income for tax purposes, that will sum up to line 23600. This is inclusive of any valid deductions under Division B as well. Okay, then you notice we have another line called taxable income. So for this individual, it is the same, but these are possibly going to be different if there are certain Division C deductions that this individual can claim. Obviously, this individual was very, very simple and they didn't have anything. So it is the same. Net income and taxable income are the same. But you may see in your cases, it is not. It is probably due to some common Division C deductions. All right, so it's this number here, line 26000, that taxable income that drives the calculation. Okay, and another session for another day would be the calculation of this. I have my students manually calculate the taxes, right? CPA requires them to learn that, but of course in practice we have lovely software. Okay, but that's the driving force here. From that, you have your preliminary taxes, which I believe is here. Okay, but we don't want to pay it, right? We don't want to pay this full amount. Instead, we have some lovely tax credits, the common one being your basic personal amount. So for this individual, they had access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tax credits. In this section, right, so from line 30000 onwards, those are going to be your tax credits that were deemed available for you. You were eligible for them. Maybe you notice it was missed. I normally get this tax credit. Why doesn't it show up? Then that's for you to double check and make sure, did you catch everything? So those are our lovely tax credits that will serve to offset the preliminary taxes. Okay, so I don't like how this is laid out. It should look more like this. But anyways, so there we have it. Okay, so we have the federal taxes above, which is in that line. We then have the provincial taxes driven by BC rates. And then we are going to have that net taxes, so net of the non-refundable tax credits, and maybe they have some refundable tax credits. So this is really their net taxes payable position, line 43500. But as we saw, we are not going to pay this, right? In fact, we're actually expecting a refund. And a lot of you, maybe that's all you care about, this bottom line. But over time, maybe you are curious what brought you there. Maybe you noticed there was actually something off. So even though you're very interested in this one line, I would recommend maybe over time to just get a little bit more comfortable with what is above that line, what actually was factored in. But in this case, this individual had quite a bit of taxes withheld and they didn't necessarily need to. So as a result, they're going to find themselves in a tax refund position, which is always nice, but effectively what's happened is they paid too much taxes throughout the year. Okay, so this was just a quick walkthrough. I hope that this was interesting in some way, or just at least gave a little bit more background to filing one's taxes. It's not as scary as it may feel, especially if you're really, really, really basic. Then leveraging from these kinds of platforms and leveraging from their AI, of course, and just making sure you start understanding. Oh, there we go. I guess I didn't have to do that. Yeah, this is much nicer actually. There you go. So this is what I thought I would see, but for some reason it was shown differently. Okay, actually that was a condensed one, and I guess this is showing you every single line. But maybe I'll make a recording talking about every single line, or that would be too boring. I'm not sure. Anyways, I'll stop talking there. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. Maybe I'll make more of these, but I'm going to be using this for my presentation at a Richmond high school tomorrow. And so I just wanted to share that. Thank you.